Speaking of the Young Turks, I was debating whether or not to talk about something. So obviously, I'm a TYT fan, or at least I follow them regularly. And as I did last week, I even play some of their clips on the show. But I also regularly watch the YouTube channel Atheism-is-Unstoppable, which is heavily critical of TYT, to say the least. I've voiced my opinion before concerning how I think that the Young Turks, especially Cenk Uyger, the founder and main host, are sometimes too PC for my taste when it comes to their coverage of Islam. But that aside, I agree with them on most issues, and I like how they usually take a relatively fair and honest approach to the way they cover stories. But I thought Atheist Roo, aka Atheism-is-Unstoppable, aka Devin Tracy, really caught Cenk in a moment of intellectual dishonesty. So during a panel discussion, the Young Turks were talking about the recent case of a 17-year-old teen, Ali Shukri Amin, I think, from North Virginia, who was arrested for helping ISIS online. He not only sent out literally thousands of tweets promoting ISIS, but he also helped raise funds for them. So the discussion got into whether or not the court system or the law went too hard on the teen, and if his punishment would have been possibly less severe if he were white and non Muslim. I believe he was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Then that conversation led into a discussion of the Dylann Roof church shooting case and whether white defendants are treated more sympathetically by the court system. And this is where the story gets kind of juicy. So Cenk claimed that the judge in the Dylann Roof case first and foremost asked for forgiveness for Dylann Roof, the white shooter, and his family. And he drew a comparison between the way Dylann Roof was treated and the way Muslims like the Tsarnaev brothers, who committed the Boston Marathon bombing, are treated. I think he also makes a comparison to the guy who recently gunned down that young reporter and her cameraman. Sorry for bringing that up. That has to be one of the most disturbing and depressing stories in a while. I think what made it so shocking, more so than other recent shootings, is the way the guy filmed himself killing the individuals, killing his victims, first person, as if you were, playing Doom or something like that. There was really something kind of ironic and futuristically dystopian about the whole thing. But back to the story at hand. So I'll play some clips. And for those of you with sensitive ears, if you're not familiar with Atheism-is-Unstoppable, they can really have, or should I say he, Devin Tracy, can really have this kind of unapologetic, in your face, no holds barred approach. And you might find some of the language offensive, but here we go.
So here's where the double standards are relevant in terms of perception and how society acts. Dylann Roof kills 9 people in the church. He comes in, the judge says, let's talk about forgiveness.
The judge in the Dylann Roof case does not say, let's talk about forgiveness. He does not say that.
So the black guy who just shot the 2 poor people on live on air, right, in Virginia, did anybody talk about forgiveness?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in for a minute. I already think that Cenk's gone astray on at least 2 counts. And I think Devin's going to call it a straw man too. But he puts up this straw man about whether or not anyone asked for forgiveness for the killer who killed those 2 news people, the young 24-year-old reporter and her cameraman, and the killer happened to be African American. And so he's insinuating that because the killer was black, no one in power or whatever asked for the public or the families to forgive him, like they supposedly did in the Dylann Roof case. But the judge never asked for forgiveness in the Dylann Roof case. But anyway, Atheist Roo has already done all this work for me, so I'll let him continue.
Nobody talked about forgiveness, right? He's a monster,
Right.
etc.
What are you talking about, Cenk?
Do I think they should talk about forgiveness? Of course not. That monster killed 2 people live on air. We saw it. It was gut-wrenching, right? But why are we talking about forgiveness immediately when it comes to Dylann Roof? Because...
Calm down, everybody. Why are we talking about forgiveness when it comes to Dylann Roof? Okay, so we've erected a straw man. This has never happened. He is specifically saying the judge, the white judge, is the one talking about forgiveness, which is so not the case. I'm losing my hair over this. To the layman, I'm a bald guy, but in truth, I have some hairs on my head. I just lost them. Now, what Cenk is going to tiptoe over, if you can imagine this fucking water buffalo tiptoeing, he is about to tiptoe over the fact that the people who forgave Dylann Roof were all black. All exclusively black. The victims' family members and friends excused Dylann Roof, the white guy. Why? Because they're Christians. It had nothing to do with race. Cenk, in his desire to point the finger at white people, to point the finger at white supremacy, to label everybody and their mother a racist. Sorry, every white person and their mother a racist. He is being completely racist and wrong and demented.
The perception is the judge looks at that kid and goes, there, but for the grace of God, it goes, a kid from my neighborhood or my kid, I could see, ooh, I feel bad for his family. That's the first thing he said. I feel bad for his family. His family. I feel bad for his family, right?
The first thing he says is, we have 9 victims here. Black. We have 9 victims. We also have other victims, this kid's family. That's the order in which he says, it's not first thing. And he never forgives or suggests that there should be any forgiveness of Dylann Roof. Not once. It's enough. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And you digest this, understand that this is publicly accessible. Watch the judge. You tell me what he said.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the hearing, I'd like to make a statement, please. Charleston is a very strong community. We have big hearts. We're a very loving community. And we're going to reach out to everyone, all victims, and we will touch them. We have victims, 9 of them. But we also have victims on the other side. There are victims on this young man's side of the family. Nobody would have ever thrown them into the whirlwind of events that they have been thrown into. We must find it in our heart.
Uh-oh, here it comes. Here comes the part where the judge is going to say, to forgive Dylann Roof. Right? Surely this has got to be the part. We must find it in our heart. Look, he's pointing to his heart. This is an impassioned plea to the public, to the nation, to the world who's watching this event. And now he's going to unload his, we got to forgive Dylann Roof. Ready? Here we go.
At some point in time, not only to help those that are victims, but to also help his family as well. When it's all done and said, Scarlett Wilson, the solicitor, and Ashley Pennington will have done the best job that they can do. They're some of the finest. Our law enforcement are the finest in this state, and they will do their job honorably. I trust they will. With that being said, we will move forward today with this hearing.
And that's the end. That's the end of it. Not one time has the word forgive been mentioned. The idea, the sentiment that Dylann Roof is somehow off the hook or that Dylann Roof should be forgiven in any way. This is a fantasy. And then there comes the part where he asks representatives of the victims' families to speak out. He doesn't couch it in anything. He doesn't say, now's your chance to forgive this guy. No, listen to what he says. He just says, you can speak if you want to. Do you want to speak?
You have a right as the representative of the family to make a statement today before we set bond. Would you like to do so, ma'am? Thank you very much. Ethel Lance, would you like to make a statement in regards to this hearing concerning Ethel Lance as a victim, ma'am? Yes. Would you like to come forward, please? You are representing the family of Ethel Lance, is that correct? And you are whom, ma'am?
The daughter.
The daughter. I'm listening, and you can talk to me.
I just want everybody to know, to you, I forgive you.
Woo-hoo-hoo, Ethel Lance. Oh, Ethel, you broke the streak of not mentioning the word forgive. Ethel Lance, you just forgave this guy for killing your mother.
talk to her ever again. I would never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you. And have mercy on your soul.
I forgive you. May God have mercy on your soul. I mean, do you realize how many degrees of hideous distortion and misrepresentation it takes for Cenk Uyger to look at this video and to report this video as the white judge said, first thing, let's forgive Dylann Roof. That was his takeaway from this. And if you are a novice Google ninja, I'm talking intern level, if you have fingers, fuck, if you have nubs, you could nub your way to Googling this. It's on YouTube. It's readily available. This is a complete lie and distortion with a completely racist agenda from Cenk Uyger.
Representative of the family of Myra Thompson. Sir, would you like to make a statement before this court?
Oh, wait a minute. What did you say? Sir, would you like to make a statement before this court? Well, clearly, what you don't see in the shot is the judge is holding up a sign that says, forgive Dylann Roof because he's white, or I might go berserk and throw you in jail for contempt of court.
Please come forward. Your name, sir?
Anthony Thompson.
Mr. Thompson.
I would just like him to know that
Speak up for me. I can barely hear you.
saying the same thing that was just said. You know, I forgive you and my family forgive you. But we would like you to take this opportunity to repent. Repent. Confess.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders, for being here.
We welcome you Wednesday night in our Bible study with open arms. You have killed some of the most beautifulest people that I know. Every fiber in my body hurts. And I'll never be the same. Tawanza Sanders is my son, but Tawanza was my hero. Tawanza was my hero. But as we said in Bible study, we enjoyed you, but may God have mercy on you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yet another black woman forgiving Dylann Roof. Nothing to do with race, everything to do with Christianity and these people's beliefs. This killer could have been any race, and they would have forgiven him. This killer could have been a wild bear. They would have forgiven the bear, even if it was a black bear or a brown bear or a polar bear. Bear racism.
Right, but when you talk about the Zarnia brothers, you talk about the Virginia shooter, you talk about this guy, nobody feels bad for them, nobody's talking about forgiveness. We're talking about the maximum extent of the law, right?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in for a minute again. Maybe this hits a little close to home because I live in the greater Boston area. One of the victims, I think it was a college-age girl who died in the bombing, comes from the same town, Medford, where my brother lives. And the pursuit of these guys and the shootout happened in areas that I'm familiar with, I think close to areas that I actually worked in with my family. But even if I was on the other side of the globe, these guys put pressure cooker bombs low to the ground that, killed several people. Was it 3 fatalities, I think? But then if you add the MIT guard, but I think scores of people were injured, lost limbs. You guys might remember the gruesome footage that came out hours after this event unfolded online. Sidewalks soaked with blood, dismembered feet lying on the sidewalk, people with limbs blown off and jagged exposed bone. I just think this was a really bad example for Cenk Uyger to go to. I don't know what the hell he's trying to prove. He's saying, oh, everyone felt sorry for the poor white killer, which they didn't. The judge didn't bring up forgiveness. He seemed to insinuate maybe forgiveness or understanding for the family members of the killer, because they have to live with the knowledge that their son was this animal who snapped. No insult intended towards animals. I'm an animal lover. We are animals, but animal, figuratively speaking. And I probably shouldn't even say he snapped. That's wrong. This crime was premeditated. But they have to deal with the fact that their kid murdered 9 innocent people. If I was the judge, I might be a little bit more of a hard ass. I might not have brought up the family of Dylann Roof. I would have focused all my attention on the victims. But in fairness to the judge, he doesn't ask for forgiveness for the killer. Like Atheist Roo points out, he doesn't even use the word forgiveness. But Cenk Uyger probably didn't mean it this way, but his tone almost sounds like, oh, you're showing all this sympathy for the poor white kid. What about the poor Muslim bombers? And and I think the bombers are, where were they, from Chechnya or something? I think they're technically Caucasian. Islam is a religion, not a race. But anyway, let's not forget what these two individuals did, the Tsarnaev brothers. They don't deserve any sympathy. They don't even deserve sympathy within the framework of a hypothetical. And remember when the younger brother, was his name Jokar or Jozar or whatever his name is? I'm glad I can't remember his name. I hope the world forgets it, but maybe at least remembers the sinister nature of his deeds so we can help prevent similar things in the future. But I wouldn't mind if that guy was erased from history. But remember when they elevated him to like pop star status? They put him on the cover of Rolling Stone. And the way they did it, a lot of people thought it was reminiscent of one of my favorite people in history, one of my favorite poets, one of my favorite singers, Jim Morrison. And so that really got under my skin. People thought they were trying to portray Jokar, or whatever his name is, as if he was this pop idol. And I was totally disgusted by that, and disgusted by the fact that, as often happens with young, I guess, relatively attractive serial killers, mass murderers, or whatever, they garner female attention. And you have these demented groupies, these women who try to come up with conspiracy theories, how this person didn't really commit these evil deeds. They're misunderstood. And it's like, bullshit. The reason why you like them is because they committed those evil deeds. And you're attracted to a good-looking psychopath. That's the whole point of it. It's the ultimate bad boy. But anyway, I've rambled enough. Let's get back to Atheist Roo.
So yeah, the maximum extent of the law. Who are you interviewing, Cenk? Cenk, of course people are outraged. They have every right to be outraged. And the maximum extent of the law, that's what the judge just did to Dylann Roof. That's what South Carolina is doing to Dylann Roof. If you kill hardcore Christians, they will forgive you. End of story. His attempt to say, oh, double standard, why aren't we protecting the Tsarnaev brothers? Nobody's mad at the Tsarnaev brothers' uncle, who went public and called his nephews losers. Nobody's mad at that guy. We have sympathy for that guy. But Cenk, always looking out for the Muslims. Because it's Muslims. That's the thing. That's the software running on his head. That's his agenda of Muslim apologetics. He sees something happen to a white guy. He thinks, first thing, boom, what if this was a Muslim? Muslim, we got to defend Muslims. You got to come through me. You want to get to the Muslims, you got to fight me. That's who this fuck is. And it makes my skin crawl. It should make your skin crawl.
But, so that does make a difference.
It does, yes, it does make a difference. But here are a couple things. One, his family, at least in this CBS story, is in here, and his biological father, who he hasn't seen since he was 4, came from the United Arab Emirates to attend the hearing. He also had approximately 20 family members and friends present. This kid, it's in the story. I read that and I thought, literally, Oh, God, I feel so bad for his family. Literally, okay? All right, literally,
All right, good. At least you did.
Right. So, and also regarding forgiveness, I don't know when the judge said that.
Whoa! Slow down. Ben Mankiewicz. Can I get a mank? Can I get a little what? On Benny Mankiewicz. Benny Mankiewicz with his pink collared shirt unbuttoned to like Ricky Martin levels. Benny Mankiewicz is the guy who's going to come out on the good side of this argument. Listen to what Ben says. And by the way, this entire segment was taken out of the Young Turks video that they put on their channel. This was edited out because there was confrontation. Because Benny Mankiewicz fought back and tried to insert some reason and some facts into the conversation. It all got cut out. They're like, no, chop that shit out. You remember that part where Ben actually like confronts Cenk and calls him on his bullshit? Cut that out before we send it out to 2 billion people.
And also regarding forgiveness, I don't know when the judge said that. I remember that part of the story, and I remember the outrage over that part of the story, which I did not share. But the many of the victims' families in Charleston talked about forgiveness the day of the shooting.
That's because the judge said it. Judge said it first. No. I'm positive.
No, I don't think you're right.
I'm positive. The judge forced forgiveness down their throat because they're good Christians.
That's
they
right.
then
I
said,
think they
you're right. We should do forgiveness.
No, they
because
did it
that's what
'cause
black people have been taught all their lives. Keep forgiving us for all the things that we've done to you. You be a good Christian. Bow your head. Forgive us. While we enslave you, we beat you down, we burn you, we kill you. Forgive us.
Hi, me again. So anyway, this was the point. I think I happened to be watching the live show when I actually caught this exchange. So once again, like I said at the top of this segment, it's not like I'm rabidly anti-TYT. I've been listening to them for years. I agree with most everything they have to say. I like to consider myself a political independent, but leaning progressive on things like gay rights, legalizing pot, women's rights, a woman's right to choose, that type of thing. And like I've said a million times on this show, if you name a religion, I can tell you stuff that I like about it, even if it's on a surface or symbolic level, like sacred art and architecture and music and things like that. And so it's not like I'm rabidly anti-Islamic either, but I believe in intellectual honesty, and I believe in not letting political correctness get in the way of the truth. And so I've noticed, as have many other people, and like I've said before, a lot of the people in the comments section on Atheism-is-Unstoppable's channel are disillusioned Young Turks fans. A lot of us have noticed Cenk Uyger make these kind of false comparisons and bend over backwards to defend Islam or speak out against what he sees as a disparity between the way Muslims and non-Muslims are treated when it comes to crime and terrorism and things like that. And like I've said before, like a few episodes back, I think, I have no problem with calling a person of any skin color or any ethnicity or creed a terrorist. Go back and look at all the old magazine covers having to do with the Oklahoma City bombing. There's magazine covers that have terrorists in big letters. Everyone referred to Lily White Timothy McVeigh as a terrorist. Everyone referred to IRA bombers as terrorists. Abortion clinic bombers. There's not that many abortion clinic bombings anymore, but when they were happening, people referred to them as acts of terrorism. People refer to certain militia groups as terror groups. And even Dylann Roof, if he was doing what he did, as seems to be the case, in the name of some idea of racial purity or of trying to incite a race war or whatever stupid motive he had, then I consider that domestic terrorism. He's committing an atrocity in the name of some ideology. And like I was saying you can have a white or non-Muslim person who perpetrates an act of terrorism, and you can have someone who happens to be Muslim, but maybe they commit a crime of passion, or maybe it's a young kid who was raised Muslim, but he's not necessarily religious, he's kind of secular, and he shoots up his high school because he was made fun of. Then that wouldn't be an act of terrorism just because he's Muslim or comes from a Muslim background. That would be a lone wolf killing. He wasn't killing in the name of Islamic ideology or something like that. It was more akin to like a Columbine, massacre or something like that. It didn't have anything to do with Islam. And I get this feeling that like Cenk is almost talking down to or wagging his finger at his own audience. And I don't know who he's screaming at into the camera, but it seems like he's trying to make everyone within air's reach feel bad because they're not giving Muslims a fair shake or something like that. And it gets really old. And like I said, one of the things I liked about the Young Turks is the way they covered news stories in a really fair and rational, but admittedly progressive often kind of way. And I don't mind because I lean progressive. And there was a sense of intellectual honesty about the way they covered the news, and a sense of down-to-earth candidness or something. But that seems to be going out the window. It's almost like Cenk has taken this pet cause so far that he's lost objectivity or perspective. And it's not a good thing. And I'm in a really weird place. I mean, what do you do when you're a TYT fan and you still enjoy a lot of their coverage, but you have to deal with this, And, but I digressed. What I was talking about is when I was watching this live show, I knew when he started to try to talk over and shut down Ben Mankiewicz, I'm like, this is something. And I was actually wondering if Atheist Roo was watching it and if he was going to do a video on it, which obviously he did. And so Ben Mankiewicz was being very and I actually really like Ben Mankiewicz. There was only one time, I think, in recent memory that I disagreed with him, and it was on the Charlie Hebdo killings, where all my sympathy was for the staff of Charlie Hebdo and their guests who got slaughtered by these extremist gunmen, Islamic extremists. And maybe it's because I'm an artist myself, but I not only believe in free speech, but I believe deeply and passionately in artistic expression, the right of people to express themselves and communicate ideas through all different artistic media. And maybe on the surface, political cartoons seem silly and juvenile, but they serve a very important role in society. With one image, you can lampoon and criticize an idea and make a very important social or political statement. And so I think it's a good thing that we have people satirizing religion. But I remember Dave Rubin was on the show and they were talking about it. Dave Rubin was defending Charlie Hebdo, and Ben Mankiewicz basically blew up. I was actually surprised at his reaction. And he actually physically smashed a piece of paper, which he violently crumpled onto the desk and smushed it, and while saying, these people, the weakest people in society or whatever, and he was referring to the kind of the Muslim masses throughout the world, maybe, not the top elite, not the mullahs, not the Saudi princes, but maybe the impoverished masses in Muslim countries, and angrily saying that Charlie Hebdo is like rubbing their faces in it. It's like making fun of the weakest of the poorest and telling them their religion's no good or something. And I thought that was extreme. I try to be a nice guy, and I try to go out of my way not to hurt people's feelings, but in the public forum of ideas, we have to be able to criticize religion. We have to be able to satirize powerful institutions and powerful people. Do I feel bad if some poor schlep somewhere in the Muslim world, some guy, I don't know, lifting rocks in a quarry or digging trenches or something and barely feeding his family, suddenly hears that someone in France drew a picture of his prophet and he feels insulted by it? Yeah, I feel bad for him, but that doesn't mean we should all shut up and not criticize religion. How are we ever going to advance as a species, as a global society, if we don't try to weed out superstition, weed out harmful ideas, and try to bring people into some kind of enlightened humanist future or something? You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm wording that properly, but I think we have to criticize religion. We have to be able to. So that was the one time where I ever really took offense to Ben Mankiewicz. Other than that, I mean, I find him likable. I agree with him on a lot of stuff. But when I was watching this live episode and I saw the way he was being rational and just trying to state what he believed to be the facts, and it turns out rightly so, and Cenk was just bulldozing over him, trying to shut him down. Yeah, I was like, we haven't seen the end of this. Someone's got to make a video about this or something. And I thought it didn't paint Cenk in a very good light. But anyway, once again, let's get back to Atheist Roo.
Right?
This is amazing. I can't believe what I just saw. Listen to that shit again.
Many of the victims' families in Charleston talked about forgiveness the day of the shooting.
That's because the judge said it. Judge said it first. No, I'm positive.
I don't think you're right.
I'm positive.
Cenk, the judge didn't say that. And now let's address the other elephant in the room, the part where he blatantly condescends to black people and takes away their autonomy. He doesn't respect black people to think for themselves. So the black people only said what they said because the judge was like the puppet master. The judge set the tone. It was the white judge who used his mental magic. He was a ventriloquist. The black people are just meat puppets who are just parroting what some white guy said. That's his mentality. He does not respect black people to even have their own thoughts.
The judge forced forgiveness down their throat because they're good Christians. They then said, you're right, we should do forgiveness.
Oh, you're right, we should do forgiveness. So in other words, the judge, who never mentioned forgiveness once, who never suggested that Dylann Roof should be forgiven at all, it was that was why these black people, in tears, in emotionally distraught state, one after another, individual, autonomous black people with their own thoughts, they said, in what was surely one of the most painful and trying moments of their life, they expressed their feelings, and yet it wasn't their feelings. It was shit that was forced upon them by the white man. Look at this. It's so wrong on so many levels.
Black people have been taught all their lives, keep forgiving us for all the things that we've done to you. You be a good Christian, bow your head, forgive us. While we enslave you, we beat you down, we burn you, we kill you. Forgive us, right?
What the fuck are you talking about? And the voice of reason is Benny Mankiewicz in the back, saying, no, Jack. And he probably knew this was going to get cut. He knows that if it gets into any controversy, if the fucking head Buffalo chief gets called out or goes on an insane rant like this, they're not putting that to air. So wait a minute, I love how you used present tense. So when we enslave, when we burn, when we lynch, what did he say?
Because that's what black people have been taught all their lives. Keep forgiving us for all the things that we've done to you. You be a good Christian, bow your head, forgive us. While we enslave you, we beat you down, we burn you, we kill you. Forgive us, right? While we enslave you, we beat you down, we burn you, we kill you. Forgive us, right?
No,
so that's what they've been taught.
I didn't think they do it because of the judge.
And did you hear that? Did you hear that again? That racism, the disrespect to black people. This is what they've been taught. So the black people don't even have their own thoughts. So wait a minute. Who's the racist here, Cenk? Who's the racist? Oh, we know Dylann Roof's a racist. Yeah. We are all in agreement on that. Who else is a racist? The judge, who doesn't say anything about forgiving him? Or you, who say, these black people, I know what they said, but it wasn't their thoughts. They were taught that by white people. White people put those thoughts into the black person's mind. Don't even take what they're saying literally. They're not really thinking people in the same way that white people are. Like, yeah, I mean, it would appear that they spoke of their own volition and totally voluntarily and independently said whatever the fuck they wanted to say. But really, there was a mechanism of white people telling them, teaching them what to say. They're doing what they were taught. Fucking shameless, man.
They did it because of the thing you said.
The judge triggered it. He's the first one who said it.
Oh, trigger warning. So, in other words, your straw man, your total misrepresentation of what the judge, not even misrepresentation, total lie about what the judge said was the trigger for the black people to then be like, I don't know, like drones, like lemmings, like just these quasi-intelligent beings who are just puppets of white supremacy. They can't even think for themselves. What they say isn't what they say. They've been taught to say it. Unbelievable. And he thinks he's post-racial. This guy thinks he is above racism. Meanwhile, he's the biggest fucking racist in the room.
I'm not blaming the black families there.
It sounded like it.
No.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Ben again. Ben jumping in with those little daggers. Oh, I love it. A2, Ben? Yeah, it sounds like you are, Cenk, because you are. Oh, see, now he's in a shitstorm. Now he's in a conversation of, oh my God, now I've got to come up with a way to make it okay for when the black people forgave Dylann Roof. He knows that's what happened. He's trying to say, look, he's strawmanning the white judge, says the white judge said forgive Dylann Roof. He never did. He's saying that's bad. When the black people forgave Dylann Roof, that's good. And I'm not blaming them. First of all, how could I blame a black person? That's not progressive. You cannot criticize black people. Oh, I wouldn't be caught dead criticizing a black person. No, I don't blame them. Oh, the white person who said the exact same thing they did? Oh, I'll blame him. So listen to him now try to say the black people who forgave Dylann Roof were under some sort of Jedi mind trick from the white judge. But watch, they're good people for doing that. Watch this.
Because they're good. Because they're good people. They got sold this bill of goods on Christianity. That oh, if I'm a good person, I'll be a good Christian. What does a good Christian do? We forgive. That's what they've been teaching me for 200 years here. And so I forgive. Once again, I forgive.
I'm not a good Christian. I would be the worst Christian, but I forgive.
They're better people than I am because they forgive. I would not fucking forgive.
Okay, you don't have to, but...
Did you hear that? Once again, Cenk loves to talk about double standards. We are so deep into this bullshit story right now, it's hard to sort of sift around, but let's try. So what did he just say? They are better people than I am because they forgive. I would not fucking forgive. Now, what you need to understand at home is when he says they, he's talking about exclusively the black people who forgave. He's not lumping in the judge who, once again, did not forgive Dylann Roof. He has fabricated that lie, and even within his lie, he's not saying the white judge is a good person for forgiving Dylann Roof. Even within this lie. He's saying the white judge is a fucking racist, reprehensible person for forgiving Dylann Roof. The black people, they're good people. They're better people than me, in fact, for forgiving Dylann Roof. Even though I don't think it's them really doing the forgiving. I think they've been sold this idea by white people who have also said, please forgive us, white people, us white people, for lynching, beating, burning, and killing you.
It's worth commenting on.
So they're better people than I am, but that forgiveness is shoved down their throat. But when we have somebody on the other side, we never talk about forgiveness.
The forgiveness is shoved down their throat. I mean, I would die to do an interview with one of the people who gave those testimonies. and just be like, excuse me, was forgiveness shoved down your throat? Was that your own thought? Or are you speaking on behalf of somebody else? Let me ask you, do you care what race the person was that killed your mother? Would you forgive a black person that killed your mother? An Asian? A white person? Does that matter at all? God damn, this is insulting.
We talk about executions, we talk about Guantanamo Bay, we talk about waterboarding, torture, we talk about maximum extent of the law. So yes, perception makes a huge difference.
What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, this is just bullshit. What, waterboarding and torture? Executions? Yes, we are talking about executing Dylann Roof. That's what we are talking about. And as far as now, he's just diving headfirst into Muslim apologetics. He's just shoehorning Muslims in here. So he's done with his sort of white, black bullshit racism, and now it's time to defend the Muslims. Switch over to agenda point number 2. Yeah, if you want Muslims to be forgiven, go ask some jihadist to blow himself up in the same black church. And guess who's going to get forgiven? The Muslim jihadists. You rotund, diabetic chump.
I think what another way of saying this is that we never see the humanity. We see the humanity in people who look like us who commit heinous crimes, but people who don't look like us or share our culture, we don't see the humanity in them. And this is another case of that, right? That's
right. Tongue.
Okay, I should probably stop to explain that. Jimmy Dore is a comedian who often appears as a co-host on the Young Turks, and he has this bizarre habit of flicking his tongue out like a lizard. And that's why Atheist Roo was repeating the word tongue. But anyway.
Because when they see this kid, they don't see a 17-year-old that could be in their family.
Right.
Because if they did, they'd be like, oh, my nephew, my son, they're such
My
knuckles,
cousin.
and 17-year-old is so stupid.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Then you might think like, hey, man, we can't have this. I got to send this guy to prison, but I'm going to take 15 years of his life. But if you don't see him as fully human, or not just even fully human, but you don't relate to him, right? You just don't relate to him. You don't see him as somebody that could be part of your community, right? It's normal. It's natural. It's human nature. That's why we talk about it, so we can get beyond it. And so they don't see him as one of them. They see him as not as one of us. They see him as one of them. So one of them, they're dangerous. They're the other. They're dangerous. Yes. We got to make sure we lock them away for as long as we can.
Okay, so I'm jumping into the fray again. So I actually think Cenk Uyger makes a couple of decent points, or points that have kernels of truth to them. Like the thing about black people being brought here as slaves and then becoming kind of indoctrinated into Christianity and Christian culture. I think C-Web and I were just talking about that on that interview special I did with him. But Cenk Uyger takes it to a point where, as Atheist Roo pointed out, it sounds like he's being paternalistic. Like he's almost describing these black families who lost their loved ones as being childlike or being brainwashed into Christianity by whites to the point where they're not even aware of where their motivations are coming from. And then his point about the other, yeah, we do always have to be on the lookout to make sure we're not treating people like the other and treating people unfairly in the way that we mete out justice. But once again, Cenk Uyger takes it to an extreme. And there's something unnatural about the way Cenk, I'll borrow Atheist Roo's term, shoehorns Islam into these conversations. And something intellectually dishonest about it, too. I don't know if Cenk realizes he's being intellectually dishonest, or if inside his deluded head he actually thinks he's the one who's got it right. I don't know. But you guessed it, back to Atheist Roo.
Right.
Now, this was a classic case of pure and utter projection. This is Cenk, seemingly in unbelievable fashion, totally unaware that he has just described outwardly what he does internally. He identifies with Muslims. He identifies with Muslims regardless of what they have done. He wants to be lenient, understanding. Oh, come on, it probably wasn't religion. It was occupation. It was geopolitical. Let's go easy on him. Should we put an ISIS supporter in America in jail? You answer it, Cenk. You answer if it's too harsh to put a guy in jail for 11 years for supporting ISIS.
Defense attorneys asked for a 6-year, 3-month sentence. In the end, he got 11 years. So I guess the question is this sentence okay, considering what he did?
No.
I don't think.
So there, we're 50 minutes in now so to kind of bring things full circle, that clip there was Anna Kasparian, Ben Mankiewicz, and Cenk Uyger talking about whether or not it was just to sentence this 17-year-old kid who supported ISIS to 11 years in prison. And I think in a way, it does suck. When you're 17, I'm sure there are some smart 17-year-olds who are just good kids and really have their stuff together for their age. But when you're 17, you still have a lot of maturing to do, and people do stupid things. So I think when we hear about a 17-year-old going to jail for 11 years for anything, you want to kind of shake your head and say, that's a shame. This kid did something stupid, and now he's going to be paying for it for the rest of his life. Now he's going to be in prison for the next 11 years. And it is a shame. It's a waste. But if someone commits a serious crime, what are you going to do? You have to punish them to some extent. And it's not like they're saying, throw him in a dungeon and throw away the key. This guy not only sent out tweets, in a spirit of solidarity with ISIS. Maybe that could be forgiven. But providing material support and raising funds for a group that enslaves, that rapes, that saws the heads off of living human beings. And I won't even bring up the destruction of the artifacts and the relics and things like that, because right now, we're talking about human life. Because of my love of art and history, the fact that they do destroy monuments and things like that and ancient works of art, it does really break my heart and get under my skin. But right now, we're talking about human life. Yes, so these are people that commit the most barbaric acts imaginable, like mass decapitations, trapping a man in a cage and burning him alive. And this is who this kid was helping. And if you think about it that way, 11 years, if you're 17 years old, having to spend the next 11 years in jail or prison sucks, and it is a waste. It is a shame. But 11 years almost seems like, in some ways, a bit of a gift for someone that's 1 year away from adulthood and was providing material support for the most barbaric and blood-soaked terrorist organization that exists right now. But I guess this episode was a little different. I know Atheism-is-Unstoppable, Devin Tracy, is one of those controversial figures, kind of almost like a love him or hate him type of figure. So, and I always try to be the nice guy of atheism in a way. I try to be measured and mellow and fair. So I hope I didn't offend anyone by playing the Atheism-is-Unstoppable clips. I know he is a divisive figure, but, I enjoy his videos. I personally enjoy his channel. I even enjoy his in-your-face attitude. And I think he largely had it right on this one. There might be times when I disagree with him or I disagree with his approach sometimes. But I think he really had it right on this one, and he caught Cenk Uyger in a real moment of intellectual dishonesty or hypocrisy. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And you guys know the drill. You can like the show on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter. You can review the show on iTunes, subscribe through iTunes. And if anyone does decide to write a review on iTunes, just get in touch with me through Twitter, Facebook, or theweekindoubt@gmail.com and let me know so I can thank you on the air. Well, actually, this is pre-recorded, but you get what I'm saying. Uh, and if you want to support the show monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/theweekindoubt, and you can pledge as little as $1 per month to the show, and you can quit anytime you want. And you can also use the PayPal widget at the bottom of the Podbean page. There's all that crazy alliteration. Oh, yeah, and I know I just did the end of the show plugs, but one more thing, too. We talked about race on this episode and gone to the whole thing about is there a divide between the way we treat white versus black defendants. And for my regular listeners, you guys already know my take on race. You guys know that I think the whole concept of race is scientifically and morally flawed, but obviously that doesn't stop the concept of race from having an impact on society. So this wasn't about race for me. This was about trying to make sure that reason and intellectual honesty and the facts win out over political correctness, I guess. But anyway, with that being said, I guess until next week. All right, thanks, guys. Later.